Evilswarm, right next to scum in the dictionary. What's up, YuGiBOOM and all of our YuGiBoomers? I'm coming at you guys with a profile today of one of my all-time favorites. I know I say that for almost every deck I play, but it's because I refuse to give up a lot of the same decks if you guys know me. This one is one of my personal favorites because no matter how the meta changes, and even though I even was a Thunder Dragon player at one point, I love to go to regionals with this deck because it always catches people by surprise, and surprisingly, there's always at least like one meta deck that it still shuts down if you're allowed to go first and have the proper hands. So without further ado, I'm going to showcase you my version of how to be as scummy as you can with Evilswarm. So not a lot has changed from my last profile besides a lot of the trap ratios. This is a core 40 card deck, but I'll explain at the end why sometimes I run a 42 card deck, and I'll explain why it's up to you as the viewer to decide whether you like that or not. But to start things off, we of course run our 3 amazingly powerful Rescue Rabbit. Rescue Rabbit is honestly the heart and soul of your deck. He's not completely necessary, which is nice to get to your Ophian, but he does just make it so much easier, and he usually baits that Ash right off the bat. So if you have the called by in the grave, it's just nip that in the butt as quick as you can and then start going off. You still do have to watch out for Ghost Ogre, which I'll keep in mind later, but for the most part, your Rescue Rabbit is going to be your favorite opener. And so for you that don't know, your Rabbit is obviously going to grab 2 Heliotrope from your deck. Heliotrope could still be nice comboed with a Catastor just to simply summon with him and make something. He's also a 1950 beater, which weirdly can come into, you know, like just be really helpful in certain game states and later on and just beating over some random monsters. But for the main purpose, you're only going to want him as fodder for Allure of Darkness if he's just one copy, and hopefully you don't draw any more of him and dead that Rescue Rabbit. But you know, he's still just a must in the deck. Then pairing off to continue off the Evilswarm monsters, of course, your Evilswarm caster. So for those people who don't know, but it has come up in regionals before, and I have been told by a judge to confirm this, and a lot of people do know this who've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh for a while, but what you need to know about caster is his effect to gain an additional normal summon is like for some reason inherent and like part of game state. So if they break through or effect veiler him, you are still allowed to summon. Similar like a Jinzo, if they don't warning him or something, call for judge because you can still go off, and it's really annoying to people and they hate it every single time. So just keep that in mind when you summon your caster, and they're gonna learn to not ash that Rescue Rabbit and ash that Rhoda instead. Moving on, we have 3 Evilswarm Kyrkion. Kyrkion's going to be the one who allows you to banish an Evilswarm from your grave, add an Evilswarm from your grave to your hand, and then get an additional normal summon. So in Master Roll 5, he's the guy who, if you open a lot of monsters and they don't have no way to stop you, is going to help you make a bunch of Exceeds in one turn. But for the most part, this deck is still comfortable just making an Ophian and sitting on annoying traps and wishing your opponent the best of luck. Moving on, I do only run 1 Evilswarm Thunderbird. I've gone throughout the years since I first caved and liked Evilswarms because I hated them when they first came out, I'll be honest. I've gone through 3, 2, 1 of Thunderbird very often, but at the end of the day, he's just a name. He's never going to be the first thing you normal summon, and you're never really going to care to banish him. Like, it's such an old school Yu-Gi-Oh effect for him to save himself, to banish himself, because back in those days, you could usually survive that attack where he would replace himself and come back stronger. But nowadays, if you free up your board, that's just free game for your opponent. So just 1 Thunderbird mainly for the name. And then, not going to lie, I've been a little bit dick riding the meta lately and seen how Ash is slowly starting to be replaced in certain decks, and I'm running 2 DD Crow in the main here with 1 on the side. I'm not going to showcase a side for this profile. If you want one, let me know in the comment section below, but I am maining DD Crow instead, not only because is he powerful against a lot of the specific decks running rampant out there right now, but unlike Ash, I could still allure with him in hand. And there'd be a lot of times in regionals where I'd have a Ghost Ogre or Ash with an Allure in hand, and they were completely useless. And I just wished that I could ditch them for something and not do the risky Allure that sometimes we're forced to do, you know? But that's why I like DD Crow. He's just an amazing card in this meta right now, just like Dweller is. Messing with your opponent's graveyard is a very disgusting thing to do right now, and we gotta keep up the highest level of scum when we play Evilswarm. Moving on to our spells. As mentioned before, of course, we have 3 Allure of Darkness. This is mainly because sometimes you get a weird mix of those Evilswarms, or you open a rabbit and a heliotrope. So you rabbit first, get those other 2 heliotropes out the deck, get the Ophion out, search your Infestation Pandemic, so you got a lot of cards out the deck, and then you just allure to try to get yourself a little bit more extra traps or something like that. But at the same time, you sometimes have to allure to start just to hope to get that Ophion if you're going first. Then, of course, another 3 of, and is a must in my opinion, is 3 Called by the Grave until this card ever for some godforsaken reason gets limited, which I doubt because they don't touch hand traps, so you know you got to keep the counter. Called by is just so important for either your rabbit, or in the rare case you do open 2 Called by, you can hit the rabbit and the ghost ogre they might try to do when you try to search for your Ophion. So I just think called by is way too important in a deck that heavily relies on one monster, you know? And it's not like we completely rely on rabbit, but since his effect is so powerful for this deck, we really cannot afford to have our rabbit ashed. And you know, having 3 and 3 is just great. Next coming up is our Infestation Pandemic. I have ran this at 1 before, and I have ran it at 3 before. Don't like 3 because it's too cloggy. Don't like 1 because we run Desires. And sometimes you know, like, it is nice to open Pandemic instead of having to search it if you're really scared of that extra hand trap to mess up your Ophion afterwards. Like, it's really nice to me when I've had regional or just local or just dueling experiences with friends where I didn't search with Ophion because I had Infestation Pandemic in my hand and I set it, making them think it's just one of my many traps, and they admitted to me after duel they did have Ghost Ogre and my Ophion would have been dead had I searched that Infestation Pandemic. So it's just a personal preference of my personal experience with the deck, but I wouldn't do 3 and I would never do 1. And then as mentioned before, we do run 2 Pot of Desires because this deck is just about getting straight to Ophion in any way you can. The nice thing about this deck is we do run a ton of traps. We can't afford to run Card of Demise because we don't like that special summon restriction, but a lot of the times when you do Desires, you're gonna hit a bunch of traps, and unless you're super unlucky, you won't hit both copies of a trap. So you most likely will still run into stuff that's gonna help you facilitate that annoying board that Evilswarm sets up, which is really just 1 monster and some stupid traps. Then of course the 1 Rhoda, because he's a 4th copy of your Cataster essentially. Rhoda's just gonna search any 4 or lower warrior, and that's obviously only him. And that's what I just love about Rhoda. Rhoda just pretty much is a 4th copy of him. And our last spell card of the deck is Dimensional Fissure, because after you go, if this is in your hand and you set up some traps with an Ophion, you play that and it adds an extra loophole into your opponent's turn that's just really annoying and really hard to get around. I've sided this card many times and I always regret it every time I do. The only time I didn't main this card was when Thunder Dragons were running around, because why give them free effects? Now, our trap cards, which is going to be honestly the bread and butter of your combo. If Ophion doesn't really open with that many traps, it's kind of bad, I'll be honest. But the traps I chose to run are all pretty scummy with a couple options that are up to you. So first off, I run 2 Mistake, because in our combo and when we're setting up our game state, we don't search much throughout the game. And after your Rhoda is gone and your Ophion has gotten your Infestation Pandemic, you're pretty much not doing any other searching from the deck. So we run the 2 Mistake because it's just really annoying to constantly have a permanent like Ash effect essentially, you know? And I have gone through 3 with a lot of these traps in the deck, but just know their 3rd copy of every trap I run pretty much is ideal for your side. So 2 Mistake to facilitate that. 2 Crackdown, because it's probably one of the most obnoxious trap cards in the game right now, and Ophion loses to monster effects. If it's not something 5 or higher, Ophion can lose to the hands. That's another reason why we run the Dimensional Fissure. Ophion could lose to a freaking Grand Mole if somebody was randomly running that. He can lose to a lot of monsters surprisingly, so you need to have a lot of monster protection or monster effect interruption things, you know, like you get what I mean. So it's like Crackdown, they summon something that you see is going to be a problem for Ophion or something that's important for them to go on with the combo. You Crackdown it, take it, and then if you need it, you can try to link it away or something later, because obviously we know Crackdown's restriction on using it for much else. This is something that might be hard for some people to play, and I know we are a rogue channel, but in a deck like this, you have to have Infinite Impermanence, in my opinion. This is the 1 trap out of the whole deck that I probably would put at 3, but it does kind of get bricky, and as much as we run a lot of traps already in this deck, you can open a bunch of traps, and it might save you and stall you out a lot, but sometimes there's certain decks, like if you run into True Draco, they're only going to slow them down for so long, and they're going to stun you a lot more than you're going to stun them. So Infinite Impermanence is just to facilitate more, like with Crackdown, those annoying monsters, or if you are forced to go second, this is more of a safe card to play in your deck in the main that saves you going second, versus some of the other cards I'll tell you about at the end that I've ran that I've put only for the sake of sometimes having to go second. So Infinite Impermanence at 2. Then one of my most favorite cards in this deck is There Can Only Be One. Because what's nice about the Evilswarms is they're an archetype by name, but they're all different types. You have Plant, Warrior, Rock, Fiend, Spellcaster, and if you wanted to run some of the other crappy Evilswarms, there's different types too. But There Can Only Be One is just so powerful when you have Ophian out. Because a lot of decks, for the most part, are going to run a lot of Cyberse or a lot of Warrior or a lot of Spellcaster. And if you are restricting them from summoning level 5 or higher already with Ophian, and then they're also restricted to not being able to have multiples of the same type, There Can Only Be One can just be exceptionally powerful and annoying paired with Ophian. And it's ever since this card came out, I really haven't looked back on it. Like, I've ran a lot of different Saki traps to try to make this deck annoying, and that one just seems to be the most efficient. Then another very annoying trap we run in the main is Anti-Spell Fragrance. Now I know this is more of a side card for a lot of you people, and that's probably going to be the first thing in your mind when you see this. But for me, the fact that Ophian and like There Can Only Be One can be so stunning, like what are you really going to do in almost any deck? I mean, obviously like certain decks have crazy outs, but if these all are open on you on your first turn, and then that's just assuming you don't get any other traps, you know? Like, that's a pretty annoying thing to get around. And so Anti-Spell just helps you with everything, especially because if they do run Twin Twister in their deck, unless they have it in their hand when you activate it, and it's their turn, like, there's not really much they could do. They'd have to wait a turn before they could even pop it, and that's why I just love Anti-Spell Fragrance. And then mainly just because of the ban list and because I love this card and I miss the days when it was at more than one, I main 2 Warning, because to me, Warning is better. Judgment is exceptional, but it takes too much life. And for a deck like this, like we're sitting on a stall, we can't afford even one turn where we gave them an extra advantage to just push for that OTK or anything like that if we're stalling on traps. And the fact that Warning can hit that effect 2 summon as well just makes it really nice for me. And the fact that it's a consistent 2k paid. Strike, I've never really been a big fan of Strike even when it first came out, for the simple fact that you know, it's the 1500 consistent 2, yeah, you know, it's a little cheaper, but only being for monster effect or that type of summon again, you know, it's like it just doesn't give me what I want in a card, and Warning just seems way more powerful to me in today's meta. And then the last trap card we run to go along with the D-Fissure and just to be bigger douche than we already are is the 1 Macrocosmos. Same reason as, you know, the D-Fissure. I actually had these one time because I had an experience where the hands messed me up. And during the Blue Eyes format, I actually had somebody who sided the hands, and I happened to side this. And on attack declaration, I activated, and then the hands were useless. So Macrocosmos just feeds more into your potential. So before I get into the extra deck, I'm going to tell you guys about 2 cards that I do sometimes run this deck as a 42 card deck. But the main reason I don't really like them, and it's up to your interpretation, is because they don't really go with the going first, which is sometimes I run Raigeki and Mandragora. Reason I don't like these cards in the main is because you're going to always try to go first with this deck. Raigeki obviously does nothing for you going first, and Mandragora can only be special summoned if your opponent has another monster. So this was only a personal decision because I had bad luck and was losing a lot of die rolls at regionals. But like I said, you can just keep it at 40 and X these 2 cards if you like the more stunny variant. Now, the extra deck. So, of course, we run 3 Ophian. If you're going to win in this deck, you probably shouldn't need 3 Ophian, but I like to have as many copies of him as possible just in case any bullshit happens whatsoever. I do have a copy in German, but I don't want to showcase it because I can't read it. But he's Übelschla Ophian. So, you know, you gotta have 3 Übelschlas, and if you don't, then you're failing. Then to go with the Evilswarms, we have 1 Exciton Knight and 1 Bahamut, as well as 1 Nightmare. We do not run Ouroboros because even though he's like a Trish type effect, it's not all at the same time. You gotta wait one turn each time and detach, and you're not going to want to use 3 Evil Swarms for one monster, when usually if you can get that many Evil Swarms in board, you can make 2 Exceeds versus just 1 if you made Ouroboros. So fun facts about all the Evil Swarms. Nightmare is becoming more relevant now because a lot less decks are being link based. He fell to the wayside before Master Rule 5 because he flips monsters face down that are special summon. Obviously that does nothing for links, but a lot of these other decks that are just summoning a bunch of effect monsters and stuff now, he can slow them down. Bahamut is a big eye without an attack restriction. Evil Swarm blows up boards. And a fun fact about Ophian, you cannot kaiju him or anything like that because it's still attempting to summon a 5 or higher, and his effect is on board. It's not an active effect, it's just like a Jinzo essentially with the trap negation. So that's what I love about Ophian, is people have tried to kaiju it and had to call judge because they don't believe me that it's not possible, and it's funny to watch your opponent waste time and do that. And the rest of the Evil Swarms just all facilitate a nice little thing. Fun play I've done before is in regional, someone Boral Sworded me and attacked over my Ophian, and next turn I made a Bahamut and took the Boral Sword and was able to attack for game. So Bahamut is still somebody I always want to run in this deck. For the rest of the deck, it's just a little niche links and then a bunch of rank 4s that are still up for your decision, and I'm also playing with myself. You have to have Dweller because Dweller is just extremely annoying right now, and everybody and their mama is going to be playing zombies again. That's another reason why I love maining the D Fissure and the Macrocosmos. You could dump Mizukis all you want if they're going to I'm going to send them away, you know? So Dweller is somebody I would probably put at 2, maybe even. I know that seems a little ridiculous, but he is just that good. I still run 1 Castel because, you know, monsters that can't be destroyed, pretty annoying. You want to like return them to the deck or whatever you can do. We do run 1 Tornado Dragon because we don't like to main Twin Twisters because we're going first deck. So in the rare event that the game goes on long and they're also setting traps, you want to be able to pop. So that's why we run Tornado Dragon. I do run Utopia and the Lightning because Ophian is not that strong inherently, and the only time you're really going to go into your links is when you have a really busted hand, I'll be honest. And to be honest, most of these links are probably going to drop as I experiment with this deck more. But that's why I like the Utopia package to help us get rid of annoying big strong monsters. We run 2 Wee Witch still because Ophian, like I said, inherently not that strong. But if you can somehow get a right hand and make one of these before making an Ophian, your Ophian's now 30-50, which makes him 50 attacks stronger than a Blue Eyes in most 3K beaters out there, and makes him a lot more annoying to deal with. Then I run 1 Underclock Taker for the same purpose of getting over stronger monsters. And then 1 Borreload Dragon because sometimes, rather than make an Ophian, if they have an annoying monster first, you just want to summon a bunch of Evil Swarms, which, believe it or not, you can sometimes get 4 out, and then just make a Borreload Dragon and take it away. It's, like I said, not going second. That's why we don't run Boral Sword or Avermax or anything like that, because I'd rather sit on an Ophian than use all my resources to make an Avermax or something like that, or like an Appaloosa or things like that. Maybe as the game goes on further, and if Evilswarm ever gets more support going forward, which I doubt, you know, we can experiment with more. But going forward, it might just be these 3 links, and I'll take the second Wee Witch out, possibly even the Underclock or the Wee Witch, since she's a little bit more, I mean, Underclock's a little bit more usable in my opinion in terms of getting over something versus just a flat 500. And then we'd probably run more rank 4s, to be honest. And that's just because we want to give ourselves as much utility and options in the extra deck as possible, since we do summon things pretty easily relatively with Evil Swarms. I've even thought about putting Daigusta Emerald, but he's more of an extender, and right now that's just not what you need. You want to get to that Ophian, set some traps, and say go. And hope that it's enough to lock down your opponent and that slow beat down till they scoop. But that's it, everybody. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed the video. If you still like to play Evil Swarms, or you're excited for Master Rule 5 and what other decks have crept up from the surface, please let us know in the comment section down below. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what ratios you would change in the deck, or if you like the deck itself and as it is. And we're always looking to get better and bring you guys better deck profiles. We out.